Welcome to episode number 109, where I am streaming Programming an NES Game live tonight on Twitch. And this is a two-stream week because of last week's streaming issues, which I seem to have encountered the same problem at the end of the last stream. I think I may be running into an issue where my internet provider is throttling my connection after streaming for a while, but we'll see. If that happens again tonight, I will reach out to them and ask them why, on the expensive internet connection I have, I'm getting throttled for uploads. Other than because maybe they think I'm doing some sort of torrenting or whatever, but hopefully that won't happen. It was just a fluke. We'll see. In the last stream, we were working on switching over from vertical mirroring to horizontal mirroring, and we got the game working with the mirroring. We did encounter a problem where now what's happening is the tiles are being updated at the very top of the screen, and even though we're doing the horizontal mirroring, we're still seeing some artifacts from loading the tiles dynamically. And as I mentioned at the end of the last stream, that is likely because of the way that we're loading these tiles compared to when we're doing the scrolling repeat mode. So I don't know that I want to spend tonight's stream on doing that, since we've been working on switching from we had implemented this repeat scrolling, and I had decided, based on some of the chatter on the stream, that I wanted to switch mirroring modes to hide the artifacting that's happening. I think what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to blissfully pretend that due to overscan, the problem doesn't exist. And we'll come back to it in maybe the next stream when it's just me. And in the meantime, we will now work on switching between repeat scroll mode and map load mode, because that will be how we will string together levels. As I kind of mentioned in previous streams, what we'll want to do is we'll want to have a situation where we can kind of alternate between the two things at will, in order to ensure that we can build sort of more complex level structures in as optimal way as possible with the maps and whatnot, having the details of certain parts of the level. And then the repeat scroll mode will handle things like transitions between the different, the heights of the different, sorry, I'm blanking on how I want to describe that. So, as we've talked about, the ship will, while you're flying, transition between high altitude and low altitude, and as a result, it will both increase the speed of the scrolling, and also the background tiles will change to give that illusion of the change in height. And so we want to be able to switch between scroll modes and also the map display. Now, thinking about this, there is a challenge with going to the map mode in the way that it works right now, because if you recall, when we built the code that loads the map initially, I had built it so that in the file you get one full screen worth of tile data, and then subsequently you get rows of tiles to load at the top. And the reason that I had done that was because that was seemingly fine for, I mean, it is fine for loading the level the first time when you have nothing else on the screen. But if we're going to transition between this and then load the level, now we face the problem of, okay, do we want to make the code smart enough to be in the game to be able to handle the special case of the first screen and then the pieces of the level, or should we just store the level completely consistently so that we don't have this problem? And I think the answer is we probably want to load the level consistently, in that we want to change it so that it's storing all the strips of tiles in reverse, and we can then load the background, the name table, correctly and consistently when we call load level, or when we transition to the map mode, we would then just start loading each individual strip of map one at a time and not have to do any mathematical gymnastics to make that work. So what we would end up doing is that then the next time we switch from this repeat scroll mode to the map mode, we would then load this row and then the following row and then the following row, and we just keep doing that until we are at the end of the map again, and then switch back to the repeat scroll mode. So that should be an easy thing to do in terms of the export, because we had kind of made, it was a two-part export process. While I look for that, it's interesting. So today, or was it today? I don't even remember. Yesterday, I tweeted out there that I was thinking like we needed to have that it would be nice to have a tool for creating art on the NES that is more tailored towards artists rather than specifically tailored to tile creation and tile map placement. And while there's certainly you have to be able to handle tiles, obviously, since that's how you compose all art in the NES, or compose all pictures on the NES. The thing that I'm, I guess, thinking about is that it's a little frustrating that you have to build the current tools that are used frequently, like NES Screen Tool and YYCHR. While they work well if you are really good at building things using tiles, I think they're a major impediment to the way art could be created for people who are just getting started in NES art creation and asset creation, because they're used to working in tools like Photoshop or Sprite, or pick a tool, right, that is focused on drawing. Even MS Paint, right, it's focused on drawing, and it's not a great tool, MS Paint, but it is simple and you can get art created in it. Whereas Screen Tool and YYCHR, they're functional and they certainly work as far as manipulating character data and generating the output character data for the game. I feel like they're just very difficult for people who are not familiar with the NES and the technical limitations of the NES to really make good use of. And I mean, you have to do something where the tool obviously confines the artist to what's actually possible on the system, and that's another thing that that's an argument against a purely artistic tool, even like Sprite, where you can limit your palette and use an index palette that fits with the NES. Even in doing that, it doesn't properly impose the limitations of the attribute tables and how those attribute tables affect how many colors you can have across all the tiles in certain areas of the screen. And so, having a tool that kind of balances the artistic approach of creating art assets, but also has the ability to understand the technical limitations of the NES seems like something that would be extremely useful. And it generated way more conversation on Twitter than I expected, which to me, well, both it was good because it kind of gave interesting perspective on some of this stuff to me, not knowing all of it. The part that was kind of interesting to me was that some people really like those tools and work well with them, and like Franken Graphics, if you don't know her artwork, is amazing. You should definitely check it out. And she just uses the NES screen tool primarily. I'm talking and not finding the code I want. Where is this code? And so why can't I find this? So, and she has a lot of knowledge about how how the tools work, which is good because there are so many things that I feel like people don't really know about the tools. So she was kind of talking about how there was so much about the tools that is useful to artists that seems like most people don't know about, and there's a README that people are totally ignoring and missing out on things as a result. All right, let me focus on this code here for a second to see what I'm missing here. Map prefix. So this would be level 1 object bin. Create the file. Map object count. No, those are just the... Yeah, okay. So those are... Oh, right. That's the objects. This is the level. So it's writing... So temp map height is what? It's the map height. Right. So, okay. So this is the... writing of the contents for the map, and then it's writing the whole map buffer. Am I just writing out the whole map buffer? Did I remove... Maybe I did. Maybe I changed the way... Because I know at one point I was writing out a full screen and then the rows in reverse, but maybe that got changed. I don't actually remember now. Let's see. That would make sense now that I'm thinking about it, because we were calculating the offset from the bottom of the map and subtracting backwards and then processing each row after that, right? So, okay, well, that's good. So then that saves us from having to change the data that the asset tool exports. Okay. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to look at how do we set things up that after we're done with the repeat scroll mode, we can properly switch back to the map. And the way we would want to do that is by a couple of things. So the screen memory would stay the same, because wherever we are after we've looped through a number of times in the name table, that's where we're going to want to start updating our tiles again, right? Because, and that could be any arbitrarily decided point in memory. So we don't want to mess with that. The screen memory is okay where it is. The part that we want to change is we're going to have to change the Y position of the camera, because that is going to be what determines where the ship's placement is relative to the background, which will then determine if it's collided with anything in the background. Excuse me. And then we have to make sure that the address for where the map tiles live in our ROM is set up properly. And okay, so it's level object data is where that is, and I believe that in load level we're just incrementing this all. Yeah. Okay. So the interesting thing about this situation is that it affords us some, we can do some kind of, we could do something that I wasn't thinking about, but would be kind of cool. So part of what's saved off in the map data is our palette information, just information about the map in general. So what tile sets are used, where they live, what the conversion is from one metatile value that's normalized in the map, because like I had said before, the metatiles hopefully will be shared between the maps, and so the value that we have in the map might not be the value of the placement of the tile in the character memory. And so each map has its own remapping table of which metatile maps to which metatile in the absolute mapping here that would live in the tile set data, right? And it also gives us the opportunity to potentially change palettes as we switch between the repeat scrolling map and the map that we want to switch over to. Now, we would want to be careful to ensure that whatever metatile we use when we transition, or when we are transitioning, uses a palette that's shared between the two maps, and that one palette would be used for the metatile that's used for the repeat scroll mode. Because then, because we don't want to change the palette out from underneath the scrolling tiles, the repeating tiles, and then have the whole palette changed drastically. We could do a cool effect where, we could transition palettes, like, because, what's the easiest way to look at the palette? Here, we'll load up something so that you can see what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. So if you look at the palette here, you could even do something where you say, okay, if I'm using one particular color and I want to go to another color, we could figure out how to cleanly transition and kind of move through different colors, almost like how you do fade effects. From what I recall, most games when they do their fades are generally subtracting 10 hex, because that typically takes you from the lightest version to the darkest version, since you can't do a smooth fade. And then once you get to 0, then when you want to fade back in, your first step in the fade is whatever base color you want to fade into, and then you just add 10 hex or 32 to it until you get to the color you're transitioning to. Again, I mean, like I was saying, we could do some sort of interesting transition between the palettes when we switch from scrolling to level, but I don't know that we want to do that right now. And I'm just because I don't know that we'd ever use it. It's just something we could do. But the main thing I think I want to do is right now I want to make it so that we can change it so that if we pass in a value other than 0 to parameter 2, it will, instead of do I want to do that? Maybe I'll check a bit in parameter 1. I don't know. Somehow we'll identify that when we load the level, we're going to do all the stuff that we would normally do, except for actually loading up the whole screen with the map data. We can start by just trying that out, like setting up the transition here, which will just be super jarring and weird, but that's all right. So repeat scroll. So what I want to do is compare it, branch, skip, attribute swap, yep. And then if we're in repeat scroll mode, okay. So let's just do this right now. So compare camera, Y position, no, load A, compare it to camera, Y position, branch not equal to this, compare it to camera. So basically, what we're saying is if the 2 bytes of the camera position are 0, it means we've reached the bottom of our scrolling section, or the top of our scrolling, the end of our scrolling section. Let's call this skip. Repeat scroll transition. And then just branch to that. And then what we'll do is we'll load A with background mode, load A background mode. What is it? Map mode. What did I call it? just map. And then store it into BG mode, and then let's just do this. Let's see what happens. Kind of. I believe. What's param1 used for? Load X with param1, just for the level number, even though it's technically always using level 1, but that's okay. All right, so oh, it should be 0 because it's 0 indexed. Okay, so as it is, like I said, this should when we hit the bottom of the end of this repeat scrolling mode, what we should see is the whole screen gets updated with the level. And actually don't know how big the Y camera is set to. Oh, it's not too bad. It shouldn't take too long to get us to the end there. All right, and then let's go to the debugger real quick here. And which one do I want? That one. And then there it is. Just want to hit a breakpoint there. Wait, not this one. This one. Just so that when it happens, we can kind of, when we hit 0, make sure that it actually does what it's supposed to do. Maybe I'll cheat and I'll just set the memory to something smaller, so we don't have to sit here waiting for that transition. So 6C. Let's see. So 2BD. So let's just make that 0 and. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to change the scroll register position. It's basically going to be like we reset the game almost. Assuming that it's not totally broken. Okay. Interesting. So obviously there's some initialization stuff that's not happening properly there. Let's take a look. So the first time we call it, we're probably, let's see. Yeah, so it's not even changing the scroll position, so let's do that. It's okay that that's 0. Let's see, what else? What else is it assuming about the way the game is working right now that it will have a problem? Oops. So let's open up our memory again, and once we get to the repeat scroll position stuff, just make this make this, make that 1. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, so now the updates are occurring properly with the scrolling. The attributes are, it's not exactly right. So there was some updating that seemed okay. But obviously things have gone awry. You know, the other probable thing with this is that it is, let me see, where is it loading the map initially when the game starts up? Okay, it's loading it down in the bottom. So we would want to force swap to be 0. Yeah. Because that needs to be down in the bottom for this to work properly, because the address that it's using to store that data is going to be in the bottom. I'm not saying this is the right solution to making this work properly with the transition we're trying to do, but it should be, at least when it's initializing the level loading, it should be handling all of that as expected, and regardless of whether it's the first time in the level or not, or loading a level. So I was just relying on essentially an initialized state, which is not good, because when we have to go load another level, it will have problems. So we got to fix this anyway. So where is my memory? Hello, there we go. So let's make this 0. And that will then give us, where is the, okay, so that is actually, well, that's better. It loaded part of the map and then it reset itself back to the repeat scrolling mode. So my guess is that that's probably because what's happening is we're hitting the end of the camera position incorrectly. Like the camera must be being set by code outside of the load level call, which is not okay. We want that to be set, again, on initial run, and at least we want that to be set by load level. So let's see if that's actually true or not, or if I'm mistaking what's happening. So we're just forcing the camera position to be yeah, so you can see the camera became only like 90 something, which is definitely wrong. And as soon as it hit 0, it swapped over. Seems like on the second time around it was less successful. But all right, so where multiply 16 to calculate the maximum Y position. So that's interesting. So it is setting the camera position. Store 0 and param 1. We don't need this anymore. that's initializing the... Okay, so that's setting up the player sprite if it's actually on screen. Interesting. So, oh, you know what? Also, swap should... Oh no, okay, that's fine, because swap is... No, that's not fine. That should be 2. All right. So let's just get to the transition here and see. See what happens. I don't know why the calculation for the Y camera position is so not short, small, compared to when we load the level. I'll have to look into that in a second. I also don't know why it's not actually loading the tile set properly for the first level in the name table there. Setting garbage tiles. Okay, so that's good. It at least is now doing what it's supposed to consistently, or doing some of it consistently. So let's take a look at what's going on. I mean, we're modifying a lot in here. And when we come in, okay, so this is a level 1 object. We're getting the number of objects, and then setting the level object data. That's all fine, or should be fine. We're forcing the scroll counter to 0. Then we're loading parameter 1 into X, and then that will give us the base address of the low byte of the map, and we're putting it into sprite mem and also to row mem, which we need to use. And then that is level mem, which is the beginning. Okay. And then we're doing the same thing for maps high. I think what I want to do is I want to extract this out into its own file, just to help me better identify if we are referencing things that are not being initialized properly. Okay. So now we're referencing that there. We're doing the include. So we're referencing the camera here a bunch. So what are we doing? This is the row count. We're loading the row count in and then shifting it by 16 to calculate the position. Pardon me. 'Tis the season of allergies, so I've been having a lot more sneezes lately. So we're doing a rotate. Oh, you know what? We don't want to do a arithmetic shift left, rotate left. Oh, right, we are doing, but you know what we're not doing properly? So we're loading that into A, and then we're not clearing carry when we come in here, which is important. Well, yeah, it's not important. Okay, never mind. I was thinking for the rotate it matters, but it doesn't because we do the arithmetic shift left, which just adds a 0 every time into the first bit, the least significant bit, and then we do our rotate onto the position +1. I guess there's something where it's obviously loading the level data wrong. So let's take a look at what it's actually loading under those circumstances that we are loading a second time, because it doesn't make a lot of sense that we are seeing a different row count, but obviously something has been misidentified. Let's see. So let's take a look at this, and we'll keep going. And then we'll force the scroll to end ahead of time. And when we recall the load level, we'll see what we get for a bunch of things. So sprite mem, first of all, F726 should be our level data. So F726. That does look roughly correct. Bear with me while I check the value of 100. So 64 in hex, of course. So let's see. So the row count would exist somewhere in this area here somewhere. Oh, but there aren't 100 rows. How many rows are there? Oh, I guess maybe that is right then, based on... What are there? 19 rows. What is that? It's 15, so plus 4 is 1, 3. 1, 4. That would be 20. Oh, yeah, so yeah, there are 20 rows. And if there are 20 rows, so that is the row count. Oh, you know what? Okay. So I kind of know what's happening. It's interesting that it's happening this way, but okay, so that's right. And then I was thinking of the Y position we had way before, which was much larger. And so it makes sense that we're getting this value now. So 140. The main thing is, why then are we having the problem of 320? Well, so that's still not exactly right. Let's just take a look at this for a second here. Why are we not loading our screen data properly? So let's get to the point where we are loading the map. And so we are going to subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we're doing 13 from there, right? Fourteen, okay. Then we are, let's see, so we're subtracting that from max rows and then doing the same calculation as before, where we're multiplying it out to find the position in the map data, and we add that to sprite mem, which should be at that point pointing to the beginning of the level data. And then we are just we're going to be loading tiles here. So let's take a look at this. Tile X. Shift, store. We're trying to find our offset into the meta tile. Where did we get that offset to begin with? Get the normalized meta tile value. Multiply by 16 to offset the number of meta tiles that Y strides, okay. Take the row offset and add the X value, get the actual meta tile, okay. Transfer A to Y. Right, so that's the normalized meta tile value, and then we look it up. We get meta tile 2, which if we look in the PPU, let's see, so the first one is the empty one, the second one, but that would be meta tiles 0 and 1. So I feel like we're already wrong, potentially. Well, maybe it's... oh yeah, because I'm not I'm not looking at that right. So 4, 8, 4, 8, 12, 14. So okay, yeah, that could be right, because that would mean it's this meta tile, which that's fine. So if that's the meta tile that we're supposed to be loading, that seems correct. Let's see. Multiply by number of tiles in meta tile, so we get 8. And if we do our offset into the meta tile starting here, yeah, that's right. So we're going to store that. Multiply by 2 to find the subtile in the meta tile. Yep. And then we have our tile values. So 5D, which is that. So that's right. So increment tile X, increment that, load A, M tile X, and it with that, store it. Where is it storing this value? Oh, it's storing to 2007 there. 2800 is that name table, and that's right. So that's very strange that it is not then loading things correctly. I can't even make it. Can't even make it partially load or slowly load. That's weird. What value is this? 55. These are hex values. Oh, is this? No, 2800. So let's take a look at this for a second here. I wonder if it's because I am trying to reload the whole screen while we're drawing. Let's experiment here. Load A 0, store A 2000, and then I'm not saying we're going to keep it this way, but I'm wondering if that's the problem. So we're done loading, and then we would want to turn everything back on. Let's do this too. I have a feeling that what we're seeing is weird results because we're trying to update the level while the NMI is still going, which would create a problem. Oh, okay. I have the emulation speed really slow. So, let's get rid of this. So that looks good. one of these is the window that I want. There it is. This is the other window that I want. And I want to go back to the upper part of the memory, please, where the camera lives, and make this 0. Aha, okay, I was right. Cool. So, that was definitely the problem, is that we were attempting to update the background on loading the level at the same time as the non-maskable interrupt, the NMI that was happening every cycle, was trying to also process, which, you know, in retrospect, yeah, of course you can't do that. That doesn't work. You can't load a whole screen like that. So I turned off drawing, turned it back on, and in the load level call, and that's what fixed it. So now what we need to do is change load level so that it can also load the level, but at the same time only load one row at a time, or start with just the bottom of the level instead of loading the entire first screen in one shot, right? And let's see if we can get that working here in the next few minutes. I mean, that should, in theory, be easier, because we should technically be able to set everything up in such a way where if we set up the initial positioning of everything, but don't do things like reloading. Well, we need to, okay, we do need to do this, where we have the sprite mem stuff, loading up the palette. Although that then creates its own problem, which is that I believe sprite mem is actually used for something else. And these are essentially globals that exist that I'm reusing. So let me think about this. So what we really want to do, I guess, is we want to not mess with sprite mem here. All right. Let's create something else that we can use. We'll call it temp mem. And we'll replace sprite mem with that. Make sure that that didn't break anything coming into this. Okay, that's all looking normal. All right, so then that's good. We need to update all of this stuff here. I'm just wondering, looking at this, I'm wondering what this is going to do. What this is going to do if we start doing things like updating the palettes. Are we going to have enough cycles to do this outside of the NMI occurring? Because ideally what we would want to do is we would want to set things up so that the next thing it tries to do is load a new row from the map. I'm just not sure. Not sure what the best way to do that is. We don't need to do this anymore. That's all good. This would no longer be needed for it because we would just be using whatever position in memory we were using before. People are still... Sorry, I got distracted. People are still talking about the tweet that I made earlier about the painting tool, the NES art tool. So ROMEM would be set. Do we use ROMEM for anything else in this here? I almost feel like maybe we just use ROMEM instead of... We don't actually do anything with this, so maybe we don't need tempmem. Let me just say see if that get rid of tempmem. Just trying to make sure that we kind of tidy this up just so that it's going to be easier to make the transition happen the way that we want it to. And that's all looking good. All right, so we eliminated a couple things there. That's good. Let's see. I mean, simplest case, we leave the palette the same. But I don't really like that. I really want it to load the palette and at least act like it's... have the possibility of supporting other palettes when we come in here. So let's do this. So I had said we wanted to use param2 for some stuff. So let's or use param2 as our way of checking this, since it's fine. There's no harm in using this way. So load it and compare it to 0 and branch if not equal. Branch if equal to, we'll skip the, branch if not equal. to this. We want to, if the parameter is not 0, then we want to make sure that we skip that initialization specifically for this use case of transitioning here. So yeah, so if we load, what are you doing? We load param2 and we get that it's 0, then we will fall through here, otherwise we will skip that. We actually want to skip quite a bit of this, or at least some of it. I should say. So that also stays there. Yeah, so we don't want to change the scroll or anything like that in that scenario, because that means in this situation where param2 is not set, we would initialize everything, but in the case where it is set, it's because we're transitioning back and we do not want it to change any of that because it's all adjusted just so, and that will get us where we need to be. So this is all good. Here we're setting up our row mem and the level mem and processing. So is that where, let's see, is that where the actual level data starts? I think that is. Do we use that anywhere? We're not. We could use that to do a quick and dirty calculation, but let's not do that, because we do, like I said, want to make. We do want to update the camera position, and we want to update the palette information accordingly. Where is my script? Just curious where we're at with that. This is gonna. Let's see what it does here. Yeah, so it's got some weird stuff going on because it's still trying to load the entire map, but that's okay. It looks kind of neat. Anyway, all right, so now that we are getting the camera initialized and we are going through updating our palettes, map position init, max rows. We don't actually have to do any of this stuff anymore. At least, I mean, we do for when we're loading a whole new level, but for the stuff that we're doing, we're loading piece by piece. What we would want to do is set ourselves up for we would want to set ourselves up for where we read the meta tiles from the bottom of the map. And that would be row mem, because row mem is where we're doing all of this. And I believe we are incrementing that somewhere here, so that's why at the end of this we come out with row mem being set where we want it to be. Let me just double check that here. I know we have the indexing using the Y. Store the row memory. This is the row count. Yeah, increment by 1. That increments Y there. That increments Y there. Yep, and then we increment row mem. Okay, so that puts us at a good position for loading the entire thing. Let's do this. So where do we calculate? This is 8-bit assembly, speed of light pen. This is 8-bit assembly for the original NES. Max rows. So what we want to do is at this point, if we've got the max rows, we are going to be here, and what I want to do now is check param2, branch if not equal, branch if equal to this part here, because we're done. We won't have to do anything. So if param2 is set, then all we're doing at this point is we're going to increment the, let me think about this. So level data, row mem, what do we want to increment? Actually, we're too far down here. Spray palette loop, and then we're done. So what we want to do, well, actually, wait a minute. I guess that's strange that I'm doing this. Why? All right, I don't think that matters. Let's just go here and say, all right, load a level mem, store a into row mem. Except that I think, now that I think about it, no, that's okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of stumbling through this because I'm debating what's the best way to approach this. But if I have the level mem and the level mem plus 1, that's the beginning of the data. We can even confirm that by looking in the debugger. I feel like I pull out my hair less with 32-bit assembly. How do you deal with limited instruction set? Well, the instruction set is I mean, it's really just more about when you're dealing with the math, right? And you got to do something that's more than 8-bit. There are some instructions that would be nice to have. It's really not that bad. I mean, certainly it could be easier, but you want to make a game for the NES, that's what you've got. So, what was I looking for? Level mem. 7.2. So that's set to, what is that, F7.3E. I guess I can just type that in instead of... And is that actually right? Is that actually the level data? It looks like it. It looks like that's right because we've got all this initialization stuff here. And then if we go to the map, not there, but here, the beginning of the map, well, that doesn't actually look right. It looks like we're not in far enough. Why is that? Probably because the increment of level data is not right. Because we were incrementing by 14 here. My guess is that that is actually not enough bytes. So let's go to... Let's just open up that file for a second and double check the content. Map1.bin. All right, so the actual level data is starting here because we've got all of these tiles in a row. So that means, what byte is that? That's 14. Well, so that should be right. Why does level data have the wrong information in it? Or did I type the wrong thing in it? Maybe I typed the wrong thing. Level data is 72, F7, 3E. Oh. Now we have the new file now. F7 3E, okay. So that's right, 3E. Oh, okay, it is right. I don't know. I must have typed the wrong address in. So that's the beginning of our level data, so that's good. And then what we want to do is we want to go to the last possible row. So we have max rows, right? And we know that our map is 16 metatiles wide. So pretty easy. We can multiply. We'll do the same thing we were doing before where we do ASL. So we have our arithmetic shift left, and then we're going to rotate right onto max. Actually, we're not going to do that into max rows. How are we going to do that? We will make use of ROMEM because it's not going to have the right data in it anyway for this. So let's load max rows into that and then load 0 into that. And then load a max rows again. And then we're going to do arithmetic shift left, rotate left, row mem +1. So we're just going to do the same trick as before that we did where we shift left and then rotate left to do a 16-bit multiply And when we're done, we have to make sure to store that back into not ROMEM. Damn it, that's the wrong thing. Oh no, wait, it is ROMEM. Yeah. Got to remember to do that store. Mess that up a couple times, and then the math does not work. And this is going to return from the subroutine when we're done. So we took the level memory. We don't actually care about this here yet. Take the max rows, store it into ROMEM, and then load ROMEM plus 1 so we can do our 16-bit multiply. We load max rows into A and do our shift and rotate, and that will be good. And then we store that into ROMEM, and then we've got our 16-bit multiply done. And then what we need to do is we need to load a level mem, clear the carry, add the carry. And we want to add with carry ROMEM, and then branch of carry is clear to here. Otherwise, we want to load a level mem plus 1, clear the carry, add the carry ROMEM plus 1, and we've done a 16-bit addition, adding the base level memory address to the ROMEM calculated value, which would give us the number of bytes that we need. Now the only thing is that that is going to be one too many. So what we want to do actually, you don't even need to do that. The only thing that matters is that we store 0 into ROMEM plus 1, but what we want to do is we want to set the carry and subtract 1. We want to subtract 1 because we don't want it if it's 100 rows to get the index into the row 100. We want into row 99. So we got to subtract 1 from that, and then we do our math, and then let's see what happens. I'm not entirely sure this will actually do what we want it to do, but it'll be a surprise to everybody. Mostly I'm just not 100% sure that I didn't miss something. I mean, this part of it that we just did is right, I think. But the oh, what is this? Why did we gain? Oh, load level. How did that gain a unreferenced label? That's no good. 138. Let's do this. Skip load full screen. This is far too long of a jump to use a relative, an anonymous label. Load full screen. Okay, we're down to the 3, which are normal, and let's reload the ROM. And what load level is broken now? Possibly. It sure is. Okay, so let's start with the obvious things. Did I mess up my calculation, or just stupid logic condition? So load a param2 compared to 0. I don't even need to do that. Branch of equal to there. Because it's 0, so we would jump if it's not 0. No, right. Branch of not equal you there. Yes, that is better. This is all going to get calculated no matter what. This is good. And then, oh no! I'm using param 2. Well, shucks. That's not going to work. There is no param 3. There is now. Let's, I mean, this isn't great by any stretch, but I want to make sure that this isn't a problem. So param 2, make that param 3. This should be param 3 also. Okay. Okay, well that's new. Load param 3, branch not equal. I'm wondering if oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I shouldn't have changed that. That was wrong. Made the problem worse instead of better. Okay, cool. So now it loads again. That's exciting. It's always good when I don't screw something up. Alright, so we've got that going, and now we're in repeat scroll mode, and where's my script window? There it is. So that's our camera position, and I'm going to force the camera position back into something in the realm of reasonable wait times. Okay. Well, that's a new one, but I didn't get to see how the transition looked when it did that because I was looking at the memory window. Let's take a look at what that looks like, because it seemed okay. I don't need to do that anymore. It didn't seem like it did any weird quirkiness with it. It just obviously was not good in that it didn't load the level data, but I'll take that for now. So we should, when this counter here hits 0, that's going to switch back to the level. Okay, so there was like a little jump here. Let's rewind the emulator here for a moment. And let's slow it down and see what that little jump is. I assume it's the scroll register doing something it shouldn't be doing. I missed it. Still too fast. Now it's way too slow. Oh, there it did it. What did it do? What was that? Oh, it actually shifted the scroll left. I wonder, maybe due to updating where the watermelons grow. This is a new NES game. This is not a hack of a ROM. This is from scratch. I'm going to ignore the scroll issue right now and focus on why it's not loading the level data. And let's see. So let's see. Load A, branch equal to load full screen, otherwise do this. I can only assume that it has something to do with the calculation I'm doing here being wrong. So let's take a look at that code. All right, so this is the code. Let's take a look. We can rewind the emulator until we get to that point in the code. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, let's... No. Let me rewind more. Damn it. Okay. So max rows is 20, and then we're going to subtract 1 to get 19, and then we're going to do our shift. And then we're going to, let's see, carry a 0. Row mem is 57, but yeah, you know, let's technically doesn't matter, but just for the sake of making sure it doesn't matter, let's initialize row mem's low byte. Make sure that that doesn't come back to bite us for something stupid. So just zip through this with the emulator at maximum speed. And then where's our memory? Let's change the camera to transition manually. Okay. So ROMEM is now going to be 0 all around. It is. Okay, max rows, subtract 1. So we shift it. And then we rotate. And then, so just for the sake of sanity, it's 19 times 16, so that will get us 130 hex, or 304. So, okay, so we've got 26, and then we're going to shift again, and then we're going to rotate again, and then we're going to shift again, we're going to rotate again, shift again. We got our carry set, so Now ROMEM plus 1 has 1 in it, and we store that into ROMEM, and we have 130 hex, which is what we should have. Level mem is at F766, which is the appropriate location for the level data. So ROMEM is all set up with 130, level mem is at F766, so we're going to load A with 66 and clear the carry. We're going to add ROMEM to it. It's going to get us, so 66 and 30 is going to give us 96. And I am an idiot. And here I am telling you, don't forget to store this. Well, I did the add, and I forgot to store it. It's amazing how that's all it can take sometimes. There may be more, but that definitely didn't help. Okay. All right, let's mod the memory address here for the camera so that we can have this happen relatively quickly by comparison. We hit a breakpoint. Let's make sure that this is working correctly now. We should get 130. We do. Level mem, clear carry, add carry, row mem. So A is 98, and that gives us 198. Branch of carry is clear, which it is. So row mem plus 1. Okay, that was the other thing. We still have to do the add. This is wrong here because we still have to do this. We just have to increment ROMEM plus 1 if the carry is set. And then we're going to load a clear carry and add, and then store it into level mem plus 1. No, ROMEM plus 1, ROMEM plus 1. Okay. Cool. So let's let this run through again. Okay, so we're at that point again. Close the damn calculator. And we're going to force this to transition much faster. Hopefully we'll actually start seeing tiles properly now instead of nothing. Okay, so let's make sure that this math is finally right. We didn't have a carry, so we're at 19C, and then we're going to load A. We stored, okay. Load A with level mem, clear the carry, add the row mem, store it into row mem plus 1, and so that's F89C. That's where our row lives. And now, other than, yeah, so this is actually almost right. That's pretty damn close. We had this part load, and then it started loading this, and then it's still calculating the Y world position. What registers and instructions do you get to use on this? There are 3 registers. There's A, X, and Y. X and Y are index registers. A is an accumulator for your math, so that's it. The instructions, I'm not going to go through all of them, but let me pull up the reference I use. If you go to 6502.org's tutorials, they have an opcode list. Here are all the opcodes, so that's all the instructions. Pretty small set, but they get the job done. As I was saying before, could definitely use some other instructions that would be nice, that would be helpful, like you know, transferring between the index registers would be potentially helpful. So you don't have to shuffle between A and X and A and Y to do that. There are some other ones that would be helpful. But, you know, it's a pretty simple CPU. It's the 6502, so it was not designed at a time where it was cost effective to make CPUs with lots of registers or large instruction sets. So we're back in this mode here. So the question now, other than why is the attribute stuff wrong, is why is the, and it looks like it's just off by 1. It's not a huge deal to look at next time. Yes, you can set up macros in CA65 to do stuff. I am still relatively unskilled with CA65, so I don't have any macros. I do occasionally use things like this repeat to unroll loops and scopes to isolate code from other code. What was I gonna say? So I want to look at what the camera position is when we start the game off, because it seems like it's different than what we're calculating, and I don't know why that is, because it should be the same. It could be calculating it based on the position of the start of the top of the screen and not the bottom of the screen. That seems likely to me. So let's take a look at what we get here. Yeah, so we're getting, I think we're getting the same number when we go through, which would make sense. We're not calculating it any different. But that number is based on the fact that we've loaded a whole screen already, which is no good. So let's make this 0. And just double check that we end up seeing the same number here for the camera. And then we can calculate the offset based on the bottom of the screen if we're, yeah. So that's why the camera is in the wrong, has the wrong value there. Excuse me. So I'm almost out of this. So when we're calculating our camera position, multiply by 16, so we're doing a full, subtract by 14 rows of 16. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that if we are, if we're not loading a full screen. So load A with param 3 and branch if not equal to skip camera screen adjustment. Right, because when we are first loading our entire screen, the camera position is at the top left corner of the screen and is at this position of the map, roughly. And when we do the transition, we're starting at the bottom. So we literally want to be at this corner here for our Y camera position so that we can traverse the entire map properly. So fingers crossed that should address that problem, and we should now load the entire map with the attribute table offset incorrectly, and then I will call it a night. Thankfully the stream seems to be working today. I don't know what happened in the prior streams where it just decided to crap out on me, but hopefully that was just a one-time or two-time thing. So let's take a look at the PPU memory here. I don't have it. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then let's see. We got the transition there. Let's take a look at our camera position. Yes, much better. So let's see if we get the whole map loaded this time. looks like it so far. Again, these colors are off because the attributes are messed up. Now, the other thing is it does look like we're running into that problem that I talked about in one of the previous streams, where it looks like the scrolling position is getting out of sync with the memory location. Treebus, how's it going? So the code, it is available in GitLab. However, I have done essentially the same thing that was done for Handmade Hero, which is if you pre-order the game that I'm working on currently, you will get access to the code now. And it's only $15, and it's $15 for, which will be $5 more than just the plain ROM. Because it also gets you access to the code early, and it will also, I will be doing a limited edition physical cart if you're interested in that kind of thing, and you will be able to be pre-ordering that before others do when I kickstart this, when the game is actually done. As have other NES homebrewers have kickstarted their games to pay for the cost of ordering physical carts and manuals and stuff like that. So if you want the code, you could do that. If you want to wait, you can do that too. The code will be released when the game is released, so it's not like I'm not going to give the code out. It's just going to be when the code is done. You bought Handmade Hero, might as well take a look at this. What's your first code? Well, thanks. Yeah, I hope you decide to, but like I said, I mean, the code will eventually be released when the game is done. And if you're interested in sort of starting from the beginning, there are the Zero Pages episodes, which kind of cover the basics of how the NES works, what's the 6502 assembly language, and then the most recent one is how to get a sprite to load up on the screen. The next one will be how loading backgrounds work. That'll be episode 5 of the Zero Pages, and I'm just kind of taking it based on what people are asking for. I have okay, you're familiar. Okay, cool. But I'm just kind of taking it based on what people want to see in these tutorials, because there are a lot of people coming over from NES Maker who don't have a background in programming or have a background in programming other than the NES, and they wanted some additional tutorials, and I had started doing them as part of this series, but there seems to be some crossover, which is kind of cool. So we got to look at, in the next stream, we're doing the transitions correctly now, it looks like. We got to look at why we're running into this problem with the loading of the tiles and the scroll being out of sync. It will... Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult. I think we should be able to hammer that out on the episode on next Monday. And then on Thursday's live stream next week, we'll get to level design. I'm not sure. Depends on how much I get done on Monday, but we'll see. Yeah, so that's it for now. Made some good progress getting that done. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, so as always, thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me on the live stream tonight if you're here watching it live. The schedule is Mondays I try to record and post a video, and then Thursdays I do the live stream at 9 Eastern. The Monday video has been kind of slipping to Tuesday frequently because of I don't know, just work and life and stuff like that. But if you have any questions, you can reach me on Twitter at Clearvis. You can also find me on Nintendo Age as Zelius. And, I post these recordings on YouTube, as some of you know, and feel free to ask questions on there. And I'll see you next time. Have a great weekend. Have a great Memorial Day if you're in the U.S. celebrating that. And take care. Have a good night.